Well, let's go back to the Carletonville, where 10 of the 11 pupils who lost their lives in a tragic scholar transport accident in July will today be laid to rest. The children, along with the driver, were killed when their school transport was hit by a bakkie on the 10th of July. The funeral was delayed due to DNA identification processes. The service will take place at the Gauteng Secondary School on the West Rand. Newzroom Afrika's Zola Sholana is currently at the accident scene and joins us live once again. Zola, we lost the feed there a bit earlier on, and I was just thinking about what Naledi was saying. You can only imagine mothers coming to the scene while you have this traditional ritual being performed and having to speak to the dead people.
It's a very, sad scene to even witness, Aljan. You'd understand that families were waiting for this moment, but they obviously had to wait for the DNA procedures to be complete. Today is another reminder that really their children are gone. The memorial service was very hard to even watch. The funeral is expected to be, extremely difficult because after today, all is done. Their families are making their way now to the venue where proceedings will be starting. But let's bring in Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona. So thank you very much for your time. Today is an extremely difficult day for the families. They've awaited this day for a very long time.
No, definitely. It's quite a sad one. But, close to a month now. But I think the families will then have to move on, because you will understand if you're waiting and the pain continues, people will still come and comfort you. So at least probably will have to move on with their lives. You are giving them a send-off, that's why we've been saying we're saddened by this. But we are comforted that now the families will have to move on with their lives.
Looking at the distance that these children traveled from their homes to, their respective schools, it's quite a long distance, which then raises issues of not having perhaps enough schools in the Mirafong cities, or schools that, parents would perceive as better schools. Hence, they chose Rockland Primary and also Blyfo. Are there any, talks between the Department of Education and the relevant stakeholders into maybe building schools that are closer and more accessible to these learners?
No, I think the issue is choice in terms of the language of teaching and learning as a preference, because we understand that the schools that they wanted to reach, they are English medium, then that's what they prefer. But we are in a process to introduce more of your English language schools in the townships. We started with that process. And we've seen that most of the parents, they will opt for, English as home language. So that's what we are, expanding in our program. But in terms of capacity in the area, there's enough schools in this area. We are not pressured much in this area. The pressure is around Gauteng. So that's what we'll be doing in terms of improving,
Now, take us through the waiting period. It must have been difficult to explain to the families the importance of waiting for over 3 weeks for this day to actually take place.
Yes, remember, you have to identify. You don't want to, expose families to bearing wrong, people. So that's why they will explain, though you'll understand that it's not an easy situation. You can't wait this much. But our stakeholders, they move very swiftly. I'm thankful to the Department of Health, for the way they've moved, and our police for keeping, families, updating them. And the municipality played a significant role in making sure that we have this mass funeral today.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your time. Well, Aljan, these families will finally find closure and bury their children, as they've been waiting for this day for almost a month now. During this period of waiting, we were interacting with some of the families who couldn't really understand why the DNA process was taking so long. But it was important that the Department of Health conducts it so that they avoid irregularities or eventualities of families bearing wrong, family members. We understand that the 11th pupil will be buried tomorrow in a separate funeral, and also the driver that also perished in this tragic incident will be laid to rest this weekend in the Eastern Cape. Back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Zola. Very sad story then. At the same time, you look at what happened in Mpumalanga as well. Remember with that accident where the scholar transport was hit by a train, and you have 6 children that died. And the important question that you raises there with the spokesperson for the education department is, do you bring schools closer to the children so they don't have to travel that far? But also what Steve is saying is that unfortunately some parents prefer to have take their children to schools where the medium of instruction is English.